Welcome to the Outlaws recap. We followed the 7 strangers from various walks of life, paying back community service for the crimes they have committed. Frank, a thief who has just been released from prison. Rani, a future Oxford student who has earned a full-ride scholarship. Greg, a failing lawyer with horrible jokes. Christian, an ex-gang member. John, a business owner. Myrna, a political activist. And Lady Gabriella, a massive influencer that has anger management problems. The Outlaws are made to complete 100 hours of community service, restoring an abandoned community center, supervised by strict and rule-following Diane Pemberley, who aspires to become an officer. Rani, a habitual thief with high expectations from her parents now that she is in community service. Oxford require her supervisor to write a letter of commendation. Diane leverages that to ensure Rani is her mole inside the group. They secretly smoke pot, and not wanting to gain more hours, John takes it into his own hands to remove the piff, which Lady Gabriella broadcasts to her followers. Mr. Wilder, the manager overseeing the community service program, stops this debacle. As they rush off to their respective areas of life, Rani is made to promise she won't participate in any more illegal activities, and John is late for a meeting with the Chinese, which is the final chance of their company not going bankrupt. But it falls through when they realize he has been lying to them. Frank struggles to rebuild the relationship with his daughter Margie. Stuck at her home for home arrest, she constantly reminds her children to stay away from him. In the past, he had abandoned their family, leading to a long-lasting hatred for him. But he slowly rebuilds this, trying to assist her with removing paint off the door and discreetly organizing a party for Tommy so he can finally gain the attention of his crush. Meanwhile, living in the projects and the edge of life, Christian has to do a job for Malaki and to protect his sister Esme from the street life. Overhearing this conversation, Rani assists him in sneaking the gun through security. When the hit happens, Christian blasts through the door, holding them at gunpoint to retrieve a burner with the line. Rani had shown up with her father's car to distract them, long enough for him to escape. He gave them the phone, and unaware of the money, he hid it in the community center. They share secrets with the group, one that Greg had a cupboard full of documents that could send him to prison for a while. Although while sweeping, 3 of them find the massive bag of cash. They quickly hide it and ultimately agree to share it. They force Greg the lawyer to help them by threatening to use the cupboard of chaos against them, so he launders Myrna and John's part of the pie. Wanting Esme to stay on the straight and narrow, Christian convinces Rani to tutor her for the exams. As a failing lawyer, bottom of the law firm, he worries about bringing in new clients as his accident with the prostitute and hitting a police vehicle landed him in community service, also with a bad reputation in the office. However, he manages to solve this problem when Lady Gabriella, in a fit of rage, failed to get her girlfriend back and saw her with a new one, had a drunken accident, so she called Greg. He got high praise for this. On the other hand, his co-worker Spencer became extremely jealous. Myrna uses her share of the pie to forward the group, but she still believes in radical activism. To try and restore her public image, Gabriella decides to throw a festival, working through the legalities with Greg and preparing a presentation for her father, but he ultimately rejects the idea and coerces Greg into breaking the news. She explodes with anger once again and ruins his garden, landing her another bed in jail that Greg rescues her from once again. At the same time, after several sessions with Esme, Christian gets wary of Malachi and decides to walk Rani home, but they spend some time partying and taking photos. When she arrives home, there are police waiting for her to question her on the van being present at the gang-related fight, yet her father lies for her, saying he was on call. Afterwards, they confiscate her phone and tell her this is her final warning. Christian is interrogated for the money, but manages to fool Malachi, and he too realizes the money is gone. Trying to protect her brother, Esme shoots Spider, giving the gun to Christian. He later notices the 4 of them talking about the money, and he tries to stick up John for it, waiting for them to collect it. He hides the gun in a store that Diane accidentally discovers. Questioning all of them, Rani accidentally divulges that it is a gun, and to avoid any wrongdoing, she reveals that it is Christian's. Now on the run, he breaks into the same drug house and figures out that the dean, the boss above Malachi, is pressuring him to find the money and make an example of a person. They hide out in the abandoned warehouse, deciding to turn over a new leaf, Myrna being uptight and selfish, Frank never caring about anyone besides himself, Gabby wanting to help someone besides herself, and Rani wanting to right the wrong. They steal his file and realize that Christian was sent to do Malachi's community hours, meaning that Malachi's real name is Christian and Esme's brother is named Ben. They group up to search for him door to door until they land at his mother's house, Jacqui, a drug addict. She admits to where they are. They all join to try and figure a way out. except in private, trying to revive his business and keep the portion of money. John has to rat out Ben, so he calls Diane. She intercepts them outside and they are placed into a van. The group meet at the community center, albeit they are held hostage by Christian's crew, wanting the money and Ben's head, but Myrna talks them down as they stand together willing to die for this. Christian is driven to stop, fearing the harsh consequence as Ben is arrested. They all create a fake story that Ronnie lied to try and convict Ben because she was jealous that he didn't like her back, and with Spider unwilling to talk, they don't have any real evidence that Ben used or even shot the gun, so they sentence the group to another 100 hours of community service. Ronnie moves into Ben's place, as all the rebellion has led to her parents kicking her out, but into her first time partaking in sinful activities, they are kidnapped. With them is Christian. Soldier has snitched on him. The Dean doesn't take too kindly to snitches and snaps his leg. However, he starts suffocating them as Ronnie suggests they can make back the money with interest in 8 weeks, so they survive. With snipers on their family, they are trapped into working together. Another problem arises. Because Christian is going to be sent to prison for violating his community service, in the time he has left, he teaches the pair to get customers through the line and deal with the runners. To get more help, they stress their situation to the group, excluding Gabriella. Their plan is to sell drugs until they make enough money to hold off the Dean. Initially hesitant, each member eventually agrees, Myrna feeling guilty for taking their money and placing them in the mess. John used all the money to fund his business, but immediately after figuring out these illegal activities, his father blamed him for the failure of the company and fired him, so he needs the money to fund his family. Frank feels guilty and too wants to provide for his family, having recently paid off their mortgage with his cut of the pie. And Greg was blackmailed once again. They want to widen their client list, so they get personal phone numbers from college computers, clubs, and activism groups. To expand their operation, they hire more runners. With less time to vet each one of them gets jammed up for a deal turned armed robbery. But lawyer Greg saves the day. Also, that Ronnie and Ben threatened to break Spencer's arm if he didn't drop the charges. Ronnie has been getting a rush of adrenaline after committing crimes that Ben is worried about. After ruining his lawn, her father stopped funding her life, so Gabriella was forced to move in with Greg, taking in small time shows to make money. Selling out quickly, they need to replenish their stock. With a quick hookup, they manage to get a cook. John worries about where his life is going and makes a new friend, also trying out crack. Frank takes it into his own hand and apologizes for missing out on family. In her bedridden state, he tries to make his wife remember the good memories they had together. After showing promise, Jacque has been sober for 1 month, and Ben allows Emmit to stay with her now. Greg finally reveals to Gabriella their drug operation because they were using her client account to launder it, and she agrees to help because she loves coke. Hence they collect the amount required for the Dean, celebrating by smashing the phones of all the lines they have. But sadly, with all this progress, the Dean forced them to continue dealing, and with a massive police investigation underway on the Dean, they organize a plan to lock him up and set themselves free. Christian calls about the American, a new supplier, and he makes Ronnie and Ben set up a meeting with him. Frank is the American in an alias, and they agree to meet to set a date to look into the product, delivered by Halloran and Sons. John had stolen a truck to disguise it as a money laundering scheme. Whilst Christian signs on to be an informant, he discloses the meeting time. On the day, it is the opening of the community center. The group lured the Dean in, trading his cash for the product, until Ben and Ronnie stick them up and steal the cash. The Dean forces them to deliver the product, but in the charity car wash, they snuck the coke into his car, leading to the police arrest. In the aftermath, they split the cash, and Christian is released from prison, deciding to leave the street life. Meanwhile, Myrna decides to resign and give the reins over to a younger member, Claire. Hearing of the scheme, Margie kicks Frank out for endangering their family. John admits all their abuse and that his father fired him to his wife Ruth, and they decide to file a lawsuit for wrongful dismissal, breach of contract, and workplace bullying. Using Gabriella's advice, Greg stands up for himself and ends up fired. But he finally goes out on a date with Anne-Marie, the woman he has been pining for ever since his divorce. Gabriella admits her cocaine and alcoholism addiction, attending AA meetings. Ronnie and Ben leave to Bristol to open up a food store, but seeing the horrible life of an attendee, she leaves Ben alone on the train, stealing a supercar to gain another hit of adrenaline. This is where the story ends. Make sure to subscribe, and for more, watch this.